Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another video. So it's been almost a full month now since the full release of Ready or Not, and I really have been putting off talking about my unfiltered thoughts on the current state of the game. And part of that is due to the fact that I've been playing this game since alpha, and I've also been creating content for this game since the very beginning, and I'm just all around very passionate about Ready or Not as a whole, and it sort of pains me to talk down about a game that has brought me to a point to where I am. And so far, it's been a life-changing experience being able to create content for this game. If you haven't really been in the loop, there are very mixed opinions from the community about how the game has turned out compared to what we had in beta. And I'd be lying to you guys if I said I didn't feel very similar to the vast majority of the players that have been supporting this game since the very beginning. I absolutely think that the largest change with this update is the SWAT AI. Previously, the SWAT AI was just so awful. Many people didn't even want to touch the game because it ruined all immersion just watching the SWAT team get themselves killed and make silly decisions. Now, with the new SWAT AI, they are much higher in, I guess, intelligence than what they were previously. However, there are many moments where I feel like the SWAT AI wasn't quite polished as much as it could be. The whole thing with the new SWAT AI was that they were more self-dependent, and all the coding and stuff that they put into it essentially allowed them to nearly perfectly clear out rooms without the player intervening. They were supposed to be able to clear dead space and have their own priorities of work like a real SWAT team would. And it was actually supposed to make it feel more like you were playing with a trained group of operators. Now, for the most part, there are many instances where this is absolutely correct, and I obviously agree this is a massive change compared to the previous build. But on the flip side of that, I've run into several occurrences where the SWAT AI go from being professional operators to absolutely brain dead. And I think it's really funny because I've had people watch my streams and they will make little comments about how I'm supposedly doing something wrong, when in reality the SWAT AI is just obviously putting themselves into harm's way. Anybody with a brain and the slightest knowledge of tactics would understand that there's something going wrong here. But to kind of prevent myself from ranting on about the SWAT AI, I will say that they are miles better than what we had previously, but I definitely feel like they could have spent more time ironing out the bugs and glitches in certain areas. It is certainly refreshing though being able to actually enjoy myself playing single player with the new overhauled SWAT AI. The next biggest implementation would obviously be the briefings and the cohesive story mode. I've got my own comments regarding the commander mode, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I think they did a really good job putting the story into place with this release. Previously, we didn't have things like the briefings and the 911 calls that we have now, and that adds that extra immersion with all these elements in place. You can actually connect the dots and understand how the story all comes together, and I like that a lot. I think they absolutely did a phenomenal job giving us a story with the missions. Now, commander mode, it kind of felt like it was going to be this insane career story mode where you can manage all your officers in a roster, and it would be actually feel like a straight up police/SWAT management minigame. And I really was extremely excited to dive into this and actually get immersed in what it would be like to manage a SWAT team similar to real life. Now, the massive downside to all this is that it felt nothing like that in the slightest. The commander mode literally just feels like kind of like a very gamey approach at managing a SWAT team with several missing elements. The idea of implementing a system where you need to manage your SWAT officers' mental health was absolutely a good idea in my opinion, but it needed to be added with additional elements. If we're going to be going as far as to add a feature where your officers get stressed out due to the daily task of law enforcement, there for sure needs to be more there for you to have access to. I also don't think the stress management system is realistic in the slightest. Now, yes, of course, in real life, officers have to deal with stress and mental health issues, but a trained SWAT officer is going to be the absolute best of the best. These aren't your regular patrol cops. These are one of 1,000 officers that are cut out enough to take this job in particular. Most police officers aren't even considered to be in a SWAT team. Let's take LAPD SWAT, for example. These officers aren't selected most of the time unless they have been involved in an officer-involved shooting incident, because that shows that they have experienced what it's like to go through those extremely stressful situations. So to have your officers break down after shooting suspects that are trying to kill you is just absolutely ridiculous, especially on missions where there are active shooters. In most incidents where there are active shooters, police will be authorized to shoot anyone with a firearm without giving commands to them. And a good example of this would be the Columbine shooting, where police were authorized to target anyone with a trench coat and a firearm. Now, with all of this being said, I think there are several fair arguments here regarding the approach on realism with Ready or Not. It seems like the devs started out with this ultra realistic style approach and then slowly backed away from it as they developed the game. There are players who want the more kind of casual, less realistic feel, and there are players like myself who want the more realistic style for the game. My speculation is that they decided to implement the commander mode with the mental health feature along with various other features to aid in the career style gameplay mechanics that they were looking for, but for whatever reason they either ran out of time or maybe inspiration, whatever it was, and they dropped those additional features and just left the mental health feature in with these silly special perks that they have. And that is just my speculation. This could be completely wrong. I'm just making assumptions here, but that is really what it feels like. Now, it would be nice to see in the future if they tacked on to the commander mode and made it more of an in-depth feeling career mode with several additional gameplay mechanics. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the Suspect AI. The absolute bombshell of a change that developers made for the suspects have just absolutely angered and annoyed so many supporters of the game. The vanilla Suspect AI is just unrealistically cracked out of their minds. When I heard they wanted the AI to be more aggressive and deadly, I didn't think they were going to just turn them into snap shooting aimbotters, and that's being light with it. I couldn't tell you how many times I have been wall banged from the tiniest pixel peaks of angles. These suspects have better reflexes and recoil control than a highly trained and conditioned police special operations team. And yes, I can kind of understand that some of the suspects have military training. Some of the guys are, PMCs, or they have special forces training. I get that, but this is across the board. This isn't just certain suspects. I don't know what the developers' thought process was when they decided to do this, but it's almost like they didn't even attempt to find other ways to make them more challenging. They just took the cracked slider and cranked it all the way up to 11. So all the obnoxious John Wick Suspect AI monstrosities that people would meme about is literally even worse than it was back in the day. I have been playing FPS games for my entire life, and I feel like for the most part now I am above average when it comes to reflexes and aiming. I know there's probably some out there that would disagree with this, and that's okay, but on top of all that, I've also been playing Ready or Not since alpha. So with all of that, I've also got quite a bit of experience. So I feel so bad for the newer, less experienced and skilled players who are just getting absolutely trashed on by the insane AI. Now, there's been a bit of speculation, and it hasn't necessarily been confirmed, but I was told that the developers openly stated that this is how they want the Suspect AI to be. This is how challenging they want them to be. Now, I have gone through the entire game with vanilla AI, and it did take me a bit to complete certain levels, and on top of that, achieving the S rank on all the levels is just another challenge in its entirety, but it is possible. I'm definitely not saying that it is impossible here, but the Suspect AI do not feel realistic in the slightest. On the bright side with this, there are AI mods out there that allow you to at least enjoy the game with the less intrusive Suspect AI mechanics, which is a huge gameplay changer. I would highly recommend you guys checking out AI mods if you feel like the Suspect AI is just too much. Now, currently I have 2 missions to complete for my S rank runs, and I've sort of just kind of taken a break from it, primarily because it was very challenging to do the S rank runs without Suspect AI modifications. It really got to the point to where in order to beat any of these levels with the insane vanilla Suspect AI, you had to break and bend in-game mechanics in order to essentially cheese your way to a victory. I honestly do not like this style of gameplay. I definitely shouldn't have to bend and abuse Suspect AI vulnerabilities just because they were coded to track you through 3 different walls across the map. It's just ridiculous. So essentially, I am in completely disagreement with the developers' decision to make the Suspect AI how they are at the moment. I feel like the main reason they did this was to cater to more mainstream audience. They didn't want the mainstream gamers to think that game was too easy. So that's why I think they decided to make this decision and make the suspect AI unbearably difficult. Now, there was a few other things I wanted to bring up. The old hotel mission was completely scrapped and they implemented Sins of the Father Hotel instead. And to be honest, I'm quite disappointed with this decision as well. I do enjoy the map. There's nothing wrong with the map. I like it a lot, but the old hotel had a very good feel and atmosphere to it that other maps do not have. I wish they would have revamped old hotel as well, and maybe they will bring this back in a future DLC, because we will be having DLCs like they've stated. They also mentioned that they were adding pre-mission cutscenes, but I haven't seen this at all, to be honest. If I remember correctly, they did state that they were going to add this in later, but it was very strange. It was confusing because they said this was going to be in during release, but then they scrapped it at the last second for whatever reason, and I haven't really heard any news on that. Now, the police trailer units are just practically non-existent. I know we talked a lot about how they're going to be adding in police trailer units, and I've seen some of my guys in my group that I play Ron with, and they've showed the police trailer units, but personally, myself, I have yet to actually see them in my games. I don't know if maybe they don't spawn in during multiplayer games, or maybe they only spawn in certain game modes, like maybe practice mode, but I have yet to see them once, which is incredibly concerning. But to be honest with you guys, I haven't really stuck around to test to see if maybe something triggers them to start to move in, but honestly, I just feel like they should just start moving in immediately once all the suspects are neutralized or arrested. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that, so hopefully they'll improve that as well in the future. Either way, it does suck criticizing Ready or Not, especially like I said in the beginning of the video, with being so passionate about the game, but I don't want to sit here and lie and say how great the launch was and how amazing the state of the game is, because the truth is, even though Ready or Not is my favorite tactical shooter and still is my favorite tactical shooter, this absolutely wasn't a flawless release in any way. But for the most part, a lot of the changes are incredible, and there's always hope for improvement with the unfortunate negative changes that we have. So we'll just have to see what Void Interactive brings us in the future. That is going to be everything, guys. Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and we will see you in the next video.